The committee will come to order and the committee will be in recess until 2 o'clock. If the committee will please come back to order. Good afternoon. I'm Senator Gary Daniels from District 11. Today we'll be holding the meeting of the Senate Finance Committee. Before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As Chair of the Senate Finance Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously watch and/or listen to the meeting on Zoom or YouTube, and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the General Court website. We have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are any problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us or call 603-271-6931. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during the meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Finally, let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states his or her presence, please also state where you are and if anyone is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I'll call roll. Senator Morse. Senator Hennessy.
Aaron Hennessy in the Senate chamber.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Senator D'Alessandro in Manchester in my home alone.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida.
Senator Gaida in the Senate chamber.
Senator Rosenwald. And I'm Senator Gary Daniels, and I also am in the Senate chamber. I would now invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business today will be an executive session to address the two bills that are left in committee. That's House Bill 385 and House Bill 600. I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Senator Reagan moves executive session. That's seconded by Senator Gaida. Call roll. Senator Morse. Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, we will be in executive session. First item up is House Bill 385. This is relative to workers' compensation for heart and lung disease in firefighters. Is there a motion? Senator Rosenwald.
Move ought to pass.
Second.
Senator
Second.
Rosenwald moves ought to pass, as seconded by Senator Hennessy. Discussion?
Just a quickie, Mr. Chairman. The Heart and Lung Bill was passed in 1973 when I was in the House of Representatives. This just takes it and extends it for 5 more years. It was a worthy piece of legislation and it deserves our support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro. Any further discussion? There being none, we'll call roll. Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy. Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida.
No.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair will vote no. The motion passes 4-3. And Senator Rosenwald,
If you'd like me to take it out, I'd be happy to.
unless there's someone else. Okay, Appreciate it. Thank you. The second bill is House Bill 600. This is relative to funding for newborn screening. Is there a motion? We've already started. So motion has already been made with ought to pass, and it's open for amendment. Chair recognizes Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'd like to move amendment 1373S and speak to my motion.
Chair, excuse me, Senator Rosenwald moves amendment 1373S. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Senator D'Alessandro. Chair recognizes Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. So this program tests basically every newborn right after, kind of right after birth for only conditions which are recommended by the National Newborn Screening Panel. And these are only conditions for which there is treatment if identified right away. If not identified and treated right away, there's a risk of death and lifelong disability and a large cost for care for the child for the length of their life. Up until now, hospitals have borne the entire cost of this program by having to buy the filter paper for the actual test from the Department of Health and Human Services. There's no billing code. So the major change of this bill is that the hospitals will be able to get reimbursed for this life-saving and cost-saving tests. Because these tests are considered an A or B by the United States Preventive Task Force, there can't be any out-of-pocket cost for the family of the infant. However, the language in the bill on line 9, as it came to us, I think is unclear by saying to the extent possible, when that extent is 0. So the amendment simply removes the 3 words to the extent possible, because it is not possible that there be an out-of-pocket cost to the insured. I've discussed it with the Senate Majority Leader, who's chair of the Health Committee, the ranking member, the prime sponsor of the bill, 2 of the co-sponsors, the department, and the Hospital Association, and everybody is okay with this amendment.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that I am on the board of a hospital, but I will be voting on this.
Thank you. Further questions or discussion? I do have a question because I did talk to some people. My understanding is that, and this is a question for Senator Rosenwald, that when hospitals negotiate, they basically negotiate a bundle of services, and insurance companies pay for that bundle. And in the case of pregnancy, then it might cover the delivery. Part of it pays for the room. Part may pay for electricity. Do you know if the insurance company is given an itemized bill?
I don't, but I do know that there was a change made to this bill in the Senate Health Committee, and it was to add the wording on lines 8 and 9, which says nothing in this section is intended to prescribe the reimbursement method from the payer or level from the payer. And that's because I think there are different arrangements that hospitals and carriers make. I don't think it's always a bundled payment. Some of it might be fee for service.
Okay, so I have
But
one.
that's the extent of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Do you know of any reason why a hospital couldn't negotiate billing that includes the filters?
I don't, but if I had to guess, it's because the filter paper, which is how we've charged for these screening tests, does not have a billing code.
Thank you. Any further questions? Senator Reagan.
So what I'm curious about is, does the commissioner of HHS set hospital fees for surgical procedures or blood tests, or it just seems unusual that the commissioner becomes the arbitrator of what a fee should be.
I think that for the Medicaid program for fee for service, I believe that we do set. Well, probably not directly the commissioner, but the department.
Further discussion, questions? Seeing none, ready for the question. The motion before us is the adoption of Amendment 1373S. Call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, and the motion carries. And so someone who would like to take this out.
Do we have to move the bill as amended?
I'm
You have to
sorry.
do the oath of
The-
We have to move the bill as amended. I move what to pass as amended.
Thank you.
Sure.
Senator D'Alessandro moves ought to pass as amended on House Bill 600, as seconded by Senator Hennessy. Any further discussion? There being none, we'll call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, and the motion carries unanimously. Now, is there someone who would like to take the bill out?
I don't mind, but I'm taking out the other bill, so maybe the other bill should get reassigned.
I'll take this one out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have for exec session. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So
Moved
moved.
by Senator Gaida, seconded by Senator D'Alessandro. We'll call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and we are out of executive session. We'll continue with our budget work session today, and the first department we're going to take up is the Department of Energy. And we can, Matt Malo has his hand raised. We'll bring him in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
Would it be possible to also have Diane Martin from the PUC pulled over, as well as Chris Elms from the governor's office and Jared Chacoin from the Office of Strategic Initiatives?
Think we can make that happen.
And while they're getting pulled over, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the Department of Energy proposal, as well as an amendment that is being brought forward at the request of the governor's office, which follows through on a commitment we made during the House phase to continue to work through this proposal to make sure stakeholders had their voices heard and that any technical corrections would be made before final passage. And we're very excited to bring forward Amendment 2021-1520S, which encapsulates all of those conversations over the past several weeks and months. Specifically, I will talk to numbers 7, 9, 10, and 14 on this recap sheet. And I would also just point out for the committee that items 1 and 3 were included by the House and are already in the House passed budget. So there would not need to be any action taken on 1 or 3 unless the desire is to remove those from the budget. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you have a preference of whether I give a brief overview of what the overarching policy goal is, or if you'd prefer that I speak directly to the amendment to begin.
Sorry, I had my mic off. Yeah, I think probably if you give an overview to begin with, because ultimately the committee will want to know if the merging of OSI and Public Utilities Commission into this Department of Energy is actually going to be a savings thing for the state, or is it going to end up costing more?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could be able to share my screen, I do have a handful of slides that I'll share with the committee, and happy to take questions as we go along. This presentation was also given to the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee earlier this year, back in April, and we had a very positive reception from them. I'd like to start off by saying this idea really does have its genesis back in 2019 from the work of Chairman Bob Backus, who is the former chair of House Science, Technology, and Energy. He spearheaded this initiative back then with a study commission that looked into these ideas and whether a Department of Energy was the right path forward for the state of New Hampshire. While that committee ultimately did not make an up or down recommendation, it most certainly paved the way for the governor's work during his phase of the budget to identify these opportunities to find efficiencies and also get to better outcomes for ratepayers. And I think it goes without saying that this governor has been a staunch advocate for residential ratepayers, especially throughout his time in office. And that's where we begin these conversations from. So as for the proposal summary, and I'm sure the committee has seen some of this either in past presentations or in House Bill 2, this proposal unifies the energy functions of the Office of Strategic Initiatives with the policymaking elements of the Public Utilities Commission. And of course, OSI does a variety of things, so those non-energy elements would be moved to the Department of Business and Economic Affairs in most instances, with one exception being the Conservation Land Stewardship Program, which would be administratively attached to the Department of Administrative Services. What we see when it comes to the Public Utilities Commission is that entity is reorganized entirely within the Department of Energy, and essentially separating the adjudicative functions. So the 3 quasi-judicial commissioners that currently sit atop the Public Utilities Commission, have them be able to focus on those regulatory aspects of what their job really is, and bring those policymaking decisions under the control of a department with a single agency head, which is standard practice for any other policy area in state government, to have a single commissioner drive those policy directives forward. As proposed, we are not making any structural changes to the Office of the Consumer Advocate or the Site Evaluation Committee. I will touch on the site evaluation committee separately because I know there's been a lot of conversations about its mission and how it's funded. In the amendment we're bringing today, we have hopefully addressed some of those concerns to put us on a good path forward. As for the Office of Strategic Initiatives and what it currently does, it really is a laundry list or a catch-all of a variety of different things. So OSI administers federal programs, things like the Low-Income Heating Assistance Program or the Weatherization Assistance Program. The office serves as a direct pass-through for those dollars from the federal government out into the communities working with CAP agencies. OSI functions as the governor's energy office. It supports state planning functions. It administers the National Flood Insurance Program, everything from the state data center and the U.S. Census to the governor's scholarship program at one point. So OSI has a varied and desperate mission that really doesn't give the entity the bandwidth to focus on energy policy in the way that it really does deserve to have its attention focused on in the state. So with that, and I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong direction here. With that, the overall policy goals of this proposal are to remove any perceived conflicts of interest at the PUC. And we've heard from stakeholders from the regulated community to clean energy advocates to different state entities that show that staff get to occupy this dual role. They're not only participating in the proceedings and bringing forward evidence to establish the docket, but staff also get to advise the commission as it comes to its decision. That there's a lack of any sort of bright red line to see which side of the table they're sitting on. And while we would never say that any true conflict of interest exists, there certainly is the perception that staff do get to sit both as a participant and as an advisor. This proposal sets a bright red line. You're one or the other, but you don't get to be both the prosecutor and the jury, essentially. Additionally, this proposal brings more accountability through the governor and council confirmation process for all leadership positions. So right now at the PUC, the division directors, the executive director, and the general counsel, those positions are all chosen by the PUC commissioners, not through the governor and council process. In this new proposal, any of those leadership positions, again, the same way that the vast majority of other state agencies function, would require a nomination and confirmation by governor and council. And ultimately, to unify the state's energy policy apparatus within a single department, rather than have it scattered in two different places that frequently have to work together. So we're hoping to find administrative efficiency by bringing those two entities under the same roof. As introduced to the House, this policy modestly saves general funds. And while we're not talking about anything you would call home about, to brag about, but we did find about $500,000 in general fund savings over the biennium by combining the entities the way we have. I say this in addition to the amendments that we're bringing forward today, which will save another $190,000 in total funds compared to the budget passed by the House. So we had savings from a general fund standpoint up front, and now we have found additional efficiencies through these stakeholder processes to further reduce the total budget by another $190,000 over the biennium. As for the total budget increase, the vast majority of this increase is driven from funds that the state functions as a pass-through for, most specifically the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So the funds the state receives are the result of regional quarterly auctions, and the department during the agency phase estimated the state would see more revenue from that auction in 22 and 23 than it has historically. It's important to note that the vast majority of these dollars are rebated back to the state's ratepayers, whether it be residential or commercial and industrial. So while the state budget looks like it's increasing, the vast majority of that goes right back out to ratepayers in the form of grants. PUC Chairwoman Diane Martin provided a letter explaining the increase to the House Finance Committee. We can certainly provide that to the Senate as well. But you see the total increases in Class 73 totaling approximately $20 million each year. Additionally, this just breaks out the compare report. When you look at the total for the Department of Energy, you'll notice that federal funds have increased steadily from fiscal 20 to fiscal 23. That's a result of the federal programs, things like low-income heating assistance and weatherization assistance program, where the feds have passed more money through the appropriations bills. And again, OSI is a pass-through for those funds, the same way the Department of Energy would be in this proposal. You'll also see that other fund increase, which again, I mentioned is driven by RGGI rebates back to ratepayers. The most important thing that I would highlight out of this proposal is the reduction in general funds going from approximately $700,000 a year down to $200,000 a year in the Department of Energy as a result of this proposal. As far as the technical amendments go, we did work in the House phase to address some of those initial concerns. And then we followed that up with a briefing to Senate Energy and Natural Resources in April. That presentation, along with input from various stakeholders, has brought forward Amendment 1520S today. And that makes several corrections, including adding more staff back to the Public Utilities Commission. Originally, we were bringing far more people into the Department of Energy. So we're reallocating some of those positions, but not adding any new positions as a result of this amendment. We've corrected the representation of the DOIT expenses between the department and the Public Utilities Commission. We've clarified the firewall at the request of stakeholders to make sure there's no ex parte communication between the department and the Public Utilities Commission, and also addressed concerns related to the Site Evaluation Committee, or the SEC. I included language for a study commission to take a broad overview of how this body has worked, whether it's living up to its mission, and what other states do from both an ongoing compliance and a funding standpoint. And I know that various senators and representatives have raised those questions before. So we're very excited to be able to continue to make progress in this area, this time through a study commission with a very short time window currently slated to complete its work by October 1st of this year, to be intentional, decisive, and make sure we have a legislative fix ready in time for next session. I will stop there for right now to see if there are any questions. The remaining slides just do an organizational chart breakdown that I'm happy to show the Senate as well. But this is the meat of the presentation so far. And I'm also happy to go line by line through the House Bill 2 amendment. Mr. Chairman, whatever your preference is. Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Yes, it's really, I guess, a question to us. On page 2, lines 16 and 17, it requires a report on pipelines just to the House STE committee. And I'm wondering if Senate ENR would be interested in that too.
Senator, that certainly is something that we wouldn't be opposed to. What we've done there is copy existing law from the Public Utility Commission RSAs and just simply reenacting it under the Department of Energy. So that, again, is just copying from one location in statute to another. If it's the Senate's prerogative to add additional Senate oversight, there wouldn't be opposition from us, but just wanted to give you the provenance of why that language looks the way it does.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Senator Rosenwald, can you refer where you were looking before? Said page 2.
Right, page 2, lines 16 and 17, it's Roman numeral 2. There's a requirement for an annual report, but only to a House committee. Maybe your pagination is different from mine.
Okay, and we're on Amendment 1466. Is that correct?
This is Amendment
Oh, I was looking
1520.
at
It's
1520,
page
I'm
5 of
sorry.
the LBA.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong amendment.
So it's on page 6 of your packet.
Right. Page 6 of the packet,
Got it. you.
lines 16 and 17.
Any further questions?
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Matt, for appearing before us. It seems to me that a task as large as this, creating a Department of Energy, I don't disagree with creating a Department of Energy. I just would like to know the thought process that was behind this. You said Backus had a committee. Did they make a report to you with suggestions as to how this Department of Energy should be created, the structure of it and what it should contain? It just seems to me that you got a lot of things in here and some of them have continuity, but some of them don't.
Thank you for the question, Senator. And yes, so the study commission in 2019 did issue a final report. Again, it didn't give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the idea. They said it required, further conversations in the legislature. We've built upon that study commission's work, narrowed its scope a little bit, right? The study commission originally was considering of bringing parts of environmental services into a Department of Energy. We saw a more natural path, given how the state of New Hampshire functions, to combine OSI and the PUC, but only those two entities. So certainly our proposal was informed by that study commission, and given similar reorganizations in state government, whether it was splitting apart DRED in 2017 or creating the Department of Military Affairs and Veteran Services, the budget really is the place for fiscal decisions of this nature to be made, which is why we see it here in House Bill 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
I
you.
disagree with that, but thank you very much for the comments and appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I think the legislature is the place where good constructive reorganization should take place, because they're going to have to implement it, support it, and finance it as it moves forward.
Thank you. Further questions? Matt, monetarily, how much of the Department of Energy is OSI?
So almost all of the federal funding that you see here in the Department of Energy comes from OSI, and I hope everyone can see slide 7, the budget change by source of funds. And again, OSI does several federal energy programs. The two largest are weatherization and LIHEAP. Additionally, OSI manages the state energy program, which serves as some of those policymaking functions in energy that are federally funded, as well as smaller programs like the state heating oil and propane program, which does consumer pricing reports on a weekly or monthly basis throughout the year. So there are some limited federal dollars that come from the Public Utilities Commission, specifically in the safety division. But almost all of the PUC's work is funded by a utility assessment, which is represented here as other funds. Other funds also include the RGGI dollars that I spoke of earlier, as well as the Renewable Energy Fund, which is a dedicated fund that the PUC currently manages that does rebates for specific types of projects. And we see that as just one example of that's really a policymaking function. That's something isn't best in an adjudicative fashion before the commissioners, but rather should be handled by a department the same way that rebates at DES or the revolving loan funds at DES to have them operate in a similar manner.
Okay, so I'm correct if I read this correctly, then we're really talking about 143.5 million for the biennium? That's just OSI?
OSI would be somewhere in the range of 75 over the biennium. If Jared Chacoin is on, he might be able to speak directly to that breakout. I don't have it directly in front of me, but I'm happy to respond in writing for the committee as well.
Okay, because my question was how much of the Department of Energy monetarily is OSI? So whatever the OSI budget is and you know, as that gets moved in, I was just kind of curious how much of the energy budget is being made up of OSI, and also the same question with the PUC.
Senator, I'd be happy to respond in writing to do that breakout. And OSI, again, is really being split in two directions, with its planning functions going to business and economic affairs and the energy functions going to the new Department of Energy. But Jared, do you have anything to add as for right now?
No, just to say that it would be around 70 million over the biennium in federal funds moving from OSI to the new department.
Okay. Do you have the numbers on the PUC?
If Diane Martin is on, just to draw a comparison from the agency phase to here we are with the House passed version. Again, I can get the breakout of where those sources of funds are for the Department of Energy. I apologize, I don't have that right in front of me, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
Senator, this is Diane Martin. I am on if you'd like me to at least give you the numbers from the efficiency phase.
Sure.
The efficiency budget for 2022 was 25,901,175, and for 2023 was 26,307,610.
Okay, thank you.
And you do have to note the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative amounts when you evaluate the numbers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions, if you want to continue.
Sure, and from here, where I'll briefly touch on just the organizational structure, starting with the additions to Business and Economic Affairs. You see the OSI Planning Division being, again, since OSI would no longer exist under this proposal, all of those planning functions go to BEA. They would exist in Accounting Unit 2198 in the House passed version. Similarly, at DAS, the Conservation Land Stewardship Program, which is just two individuals, one of which is vacant, would be administratively attached. That is a self-funded program through a dedicated fund. They do monitoring of easements and other things of that nature for both Fish and Game and DNCR. They would be self-contained within administrative services, which brings us to the Department of Energy structure. And with the Department of Energy structure, I'll just note the administratively attached agencies, so the Office of the Consumer Advocate at the top left and the Site Evaluation Committee at the top right. Those both are currently administratively attached to the Public Utilities Commission. Under this proposal, that administrative attachment would become the Department of Energy. In the Department of Energy, you have the Office of the Commissioner and 4 divisions below that. The administrative support, which essentially is the business office and other back office functions, which would provide support to both the OCA, the adjudicative commissioners, and the Site Evaluation Committee as a shared services model. So rather than having 2 separate business offices the way we currently would, this proposal would bring those functions into the same division, and again, provide that same level of back office support. As for the department, the other 3 division directors, you see policy and programs, which is where the OSI functions would slide in. Again, anything that deals with federal money or rebates back to customers or ratepayers would be in policy and programs, things like the Renewable Energy Fund functions. In enforcement, you would have the audit and the safety divisions of the PUC. Those would both exist here in the enforcement division. And then finally, in regulatory, this would be the existing electric, gas, and water divisions of the commission. The regulatory division would represent the interests of the state in dockets before the Public Utilities Commissioners. That's the high-level overview. From here, you'll see one level down in detail, so the Commissioner's office with the Commissioner and a deputy and a vacant Administrator 2 position. Policy and programs, you see, again, the weatherization program that I've referred to previously, the sustainable energy functions that currently exist at the Public Utilities Commission, the offshore wind office, which is funded for the first time in this proposal, was passed and enacted at BEA previously, but now bringing it into a more exact home. The fuel assistance program, which again is federal money granted back to New Hampshire residents. The NESCO manager, which deals with the regional energy issues, currently at the PUC. And you see the consumer division at the PUC, again, which is that customer-facing entity, would be part of this division of the department, and a program planner, which would continue to administer things like the state energy program and SHOP, which again are both currently OSI functions. On the next slide, you see the division of enforcement, and again, the audit division, which currently exists at the PUC, the safety division, which is at the PUC currently, and any of those investigative aspects. And again, currently 2 vacancies in this accounting unit as it sits right now. The regulatory division, again, the electric division and the gas and water with their staff. These individuals, again, would be the ones to appear before the Utility Commission to represent the public interest when it comes to any dockets and how that might impact consumers in the state of New Hampshire. Here is the support division, which again would do those back office functions, things like the legal director and the hearings examiners, any of the accounting functions or the business systems and federal grants compliance. You do see a number of vacancies here in this department, partially driven by the hiring freeze during COVID. But what I will say is the Department of Energy Commissioner through HB2 is given the direct authority to reorganize positions as he or she sees fit. And the reason being that as this new department takes shape, you may see a higher vacancy rate in certain areas during this transitory phase. So again, that we understand this would be a process like merging any 2 complex entities, which is why you see things structured in the way they are. As for the Office of the Consumer Advocate, no structural changes to his staff or his authority. The Site Evaluation Committee currently has a vacant unclassified administrator. There's a language in the House Bill 2 Amendment 1520, which establishes a study commission. The House did unfund this position, which I do have some concerns on, just making sure the state can function if any energy facilities are looking to be sited here in the state. I'll let Chairwoman Martin speak to that later on in this presentation. And then finally, you see the PUC or the adjudicative commissioners. And the biggest change from the House phase here is, again, that we've pulled more personnel into this division and also broadened the scope of what their support staff would have as far as backgrounds and qualifications, building from feedback we heard from stakeholders, especially concerning attorneys and making sure that the PUC has the right types of staff in the right number. And by broadening the scope of these advisory positions, which would help the commissioners decide and write and issue their orders, we feel that we've struck a good balance based on that stakeholder feedback. And that's the last slide that I have as to the organizational charts, and I'm happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? When you look at personnel, what that now make up things like SEC, OCA, OSI, PUC. What is the net in personnel when you get the Department of Energy together versus what you have as standalone now?
So specific to the OCA and the Site Evaluation Committee, there are no changes to personnel. So the OCA staff that currently exists wouldn't be increased or decreased. Again, the House chose to unfund the SEC administrator, which wouldn't leave any personnel for the next biennium to address the siting or compliance of facilities that have previously been permitted. So that, I think, is definitely something for the Senate to consider, whether or not the state should have a staff person addressing ongoing compliance with certificates or the issuance of new certificates. And the vast majority of this personnel is either existing at OSI or existing at the PUC and being reallocated between the Department of Energy and the very limited staff at the Public Utilities Commission.
Okay, and all that results in a $500,000 savings.
Yes, and the vast majority of that savings does come from the efficiencies that we gain by essentially going from two entities, OSI and the PUC, into one, being the Department of Energy, right? So we found efficiencies, whether it be from back office functions and other things of that nature, and just making sure that we're best placing these functions from a good governance standpoint. Again, the overarching drivers of this proposal really are from a policy standpoint to make sure that the state has an energy policy apparatus that is unified and is able to complete its work in a timely and effective manner with the right levels of oversight from governor and council in a way that the current PUC just hasn't had to maintain. So by bringing them in alignment with every other state agency to make sure that their leadership and division directors have to go through governor and council, we see those as the main drivers, and finding cost savings along the way has been an added bonus to the bipartisan support for this proposal.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Seeing none, and I think you said that was all you had?
That is all I had on the presentation. Mr. Chairman, if you would like, I can go through the amendment in detail, but I'll leave that to your discretion.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and go through the amendment? Did
So
the House put in everything that you had as priorities?
So the House did adopt one amendment that addressed some of the outstanding concerns from stakeholders. This is the second half of those conversations. So the vast majority of this is technical in nature. And this begins on page 5 of your packet. I'll start here on line 3. This sentence just clarifies that the only support the department should be providing to the commission is administrative. The House passed version included technical and clerical. Stakeholders had concerns that that would be an insufficient firewall. So this sentence here, again, clarifying the very narrow and limited scope of what that support would look like. On line 9, you see a reference to the deputy commissioner. In House Bill 2 is passed by the House. There's an erroneous reference to an assistant commissioner position, which doesn't exist. So this merely corrects the title from assistant to deputy. Again, there's no assistant commissioner. In section here on line 14 beginning, we're adding additional firewall protection to make sure there's no ex parte communication. And you see that here, that department employees shall not communicate with the Public Utilities Commission or its staff in connection with any issue pending before the commission, except upon notice and opportunity for all parties to participate. And again, the intention here to make sure that we're addressing some of those long-standing perceptions of conflicts of interest by going through this reorganization. Here in section 12 P9, we've added a sentence that says the Division of Regulatory Support shall automatically be a party to proceedings. This is similar language that the Office of the Consumer Advocate already has in their statutes. Moving on to page 6 of the packet, everything you see here is already in House Bill 2 as passed by the House. The change begins here on 12P15, which is adding back language that it previously existed at the Public Utilities Commission, but now would be at the Department of Energy, and just making sure that we're not losing that rulemaking authority here. Moving on to page 7, just wanted to point out in the repeal section 185, this was raised by one senator previously. While yes, we're repealing the statute related to the state energy strategy and the Offshore Wind Industry Development Office, those are both recodified in House Bill 2 as passed by the House. That language still continues to exist there. That's pages 78 and 79 of House Bill 2 as passed by the House. These are just now recodified under the Department of Energy. You see similar statutory changes for revolving funds at OSI, recodifying those under the Department of Business and Economic Affairs, and just changing those references. On page 8 of the packet, you see changes just clarifying where these unclassified positions exist at the Public Utilities Commission and how the permanent salaries would be established by the Department of Administrative Services through their standard process. You also see here on line 15 and 16, clarifying that these positions can and should, you might even say, be attorneys, again, at the request of stakeholders to make sure the commission had the appropriate staff that it needs. Moving down to line 33, you see the revolving funds that previously were at OSI, here recodified at BEA. So this is the other half of that change from the previous page. That is pages 8 and on to 9. On line 31 of page 9, you see that we've added the Commissioner of the Department of Energy to the Nuclear Decommissioning Finance Committee. This replaces the seat that OSI currently has, so making sure that we aren't changing the membership, just correcting the reference to where that personnel would come from. And you see striking through a past name of the Office of Strategic Initiatives. On page 10 of the LBA packet, you see the change to the Site Evaluation Committee, administratively attaching it to the Department of Energy, and establishing a study committee to make sure we're addressing this both from an energy policy standpoint, but also from a finance standpoint. I know there have been ongoing conversations about how the SEC should be funded. We don't believe that the budget is the best place to work out those various details. So after working with stakeholders, this committee would have a very narrow timeline by October 1st to bring those long-standing challenges back. And you see that here on lines 31 and 32. Moving on to page 11 of the LBA packet. In section 221, there's a reference change. One of these sections of law was incorrectly referred to, so we've just fixed it from 336-G to 339-G. On lines 23 and 24 of this page, making reference changes from Commission to Department of Energy in this section of statute in 362F. Similarly, reference changes on lines 30, 31, and 32, just to clarify the process that this new department will use for the utility assessment, which would be paid to the Department of Energy rather than to the Public Utilities Commission. On page 12 of the LBA packet, lines 12 and 13, reference changes to show that both the commission and the Department of Energy have the authority, whether it be the chairperson of the commission or the commissioner of the Department of Energy. On lines 17 and 18, repealing statutes that currently exist at the Public Utilities Commission and should be recodified at the department. And that was an earlier section of this amendment that I referred to, 12P:15. On lines 22, all of this section really is confirming and changing references from the commission to the Department of Energy as it relates to rate proceedings. And again, this comes back to the utility assessment and making sure that we have the right entities responsible for administrating that. Section 250 of House Bill 2 would be deleted by this amendment. That is a statute that I believe was first passed in 1911 and hasn't been amended since 1957. So as a result of restructuring, that statute is no longer operable, and there was no reason to reenact it, given that it is out of date and no longer used. And we verified that both with the Commission and the Department of Justice to verify that it's no longer operable. Moving on to page 13, you
Yes.
see reference changes. I'm sorry, was there a question?
Oh, great. How's everything that's Grant?
Senator D'Alessandro, did you have a question?
No,
Okay, thank you.
My apologies. Line 6 and 7, a reference change from the Commission to the Department of Energy. Section 262, which begins on line 11.
oh, wow. Wow.
This section is a result of House Bill 134, which was already signed into law this session, which repealed section RSA 374:22-Q. So there are no changes to HB2 besides just removing any reference to that statute that's now been repealed. So everything you see here on pages 13, 14, 15, and into 16 is all language that already exists, that was already passed by the House. We just did not want to pass conflicting language from a bill that's been signed into law. So there are no changes from the House passed version, just a function of how that section of HB2 was written. Which brings us to page 16 of the LBA packet. Section 264, this was another statute that is no longer operable. Again, pre-utility restructuring, these statutes are no longer relevant to the way the energy market functions since 1996. And again, there was not a reason to reenact these during this change from the PUC to the Department of Energy. In lines 22 and 23 of this page, you see again a reference change to encompass both the Commission and the Department of Energy. Similarly here, Commission or the Department of Energy on lines 30 and 31, just clarifying the authority of those two entities. Moving on to LBA page 17, you see a reference change here from Commission to the Department of Energy for an ongoing proceeding that was passed out of Senate Bill 286, just clarifying the Commission has the authority to determine if the cost is in the public interest, even though the Department of Energy would be the entity tasked with implementing that proposal if the Commission deemed it to move forward. Here in section 191, the Council on Resources and Development currently is chaired by the Office of Strategic Initiatives. Given that the Office of Strategic Initiatives would no longer exist, just updating the membership, confirming that the Department of Business and Economic Affairs would serve as the chairperson of that council, and renumbering the remaining sections of that statute. Here on page 18 of the LBA packet, corrects language to make the Renewable Energy Fund continually appropriated the Senate has already passed Senate Bill 78 on this topic. And again, this was at the request of stakeholders to make sure that there weren't conflicting sets of language that were floating out and moving through the process. So here added to HB2 to make sure that this is both non-lapsing and continually appropriated to the Department of Energy. And then finally, just an update to the reference for which entity has to post competitive supplier information on its website, which would be the Department of Energy, and just clarifying, given that this is now already law, we did not want to reenact a new process, but still clarifying that the Department of Energy shall review its website every 2 years, which you see with standard language for the commission. And that is the end of the amendment. More than happy to answer any questions. I know I went through that rather quickly. But as you can see, the vast majority of these changes are technical in nature, just making reference changes from one entity to the other as a result of our extensive work with stakeholders.
Well,
Senator Daniels, you are on mute.
Thank you, sorry. The presentation you gave, the amendment seems to contain items that are in House Bill 2 from the House and as well as items that are not. Is that a correct statement?
That is a correct statement, and this was just a matter of drafting. But yes, that is a correct statement.
Okay, for the things that are not in the House bill, do those match up with any of the other change requests that are noted on the recap sheet?
So none of the changes directly line up with the requests on the recap sheet. And again, I would just point out that number 1 and number 3 are already in the House passed version. Certainly some of what we're doing with the site evaluation committee is tangential to the requests in 4, 5, and 6, but they're not, there's not a fiscal impact associated with the changes we're proposing in this amendment. Again, this really is a technical amendment to confirm references to which department would have these duties and functions.
Okay, so my final question, is there a monetary value to those items in the amendment that are not part of the House bill?
There is not a monetary impact to the amendment to HB2. The request you see in 7 deals with moving funds between accounting units in House Bill 1. And the LBA can speak to some of the various things that we're doing, but a lot of it comes down to where the IT costs exist, whether it's at the Department of Energy or the PUC, moving personnel between different accounting units and making sure that we've funded the costs to move the agency from its current location in Johnson Hall to the Walker Building and do some very moderate renovation to make sure that the 2 entities are physically separated within the building as well. And that was, again, at the request of stakeholders to make sure that these 2 entities would function independently from each other, that you wouldn't have any contact outside of the public record between these entities. So again, there are a variety of things that are happening in 7. And I would couple 7 with 9 and 10, especially from the IT perspective. And between 7, 9, and 10, there is a net total fund saving of $190,000 over the biennium.
So why did the House not put these in?
As for 9 and 10, those were budgets that the House did not removed as part of this proposal. I can't speak to why they would have left those accounting units in, but those should be removed because those funds are already allocated elsewhere, specifically to the Department of Energy. As for the things the House did not take up, I would attribute that mainly to the conversations we've had with stakeholders to make sure that the department would be operable and accomplish the policy objectives that we've set forward, stretching from the governor's phase. The House did adopt a variety of amendments to House Bill 1 with a financial impact. So these, again, are just the result of that ongoing process and the result of those conversations with stakeholders, which is what you see in line 7, 9, and 10.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? A lot of information to absorb. Seeing none, thank you, Matt. Anyone else wanted to add anything? Diane or Jared? Chris? All right, thank you very much. What's the committee's desire on this? Do you want to put this on hold and absorb the information, or are you ready to look at things now?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Senator Delasoto.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think given given the magnitude of the amendment, he says they're all just technical corrections. But indeed, when you look at it, these are things that evidently weren't brought to the House, or if they were brought to the House, were rejected by the House. And this is a humongous task, creating this Department of Energy, coupling all of these things together. And I see a plan, but is it really a well thought out, well documented plan? Do we really have significant savings? Do we really do a better job of servicing entities with this Department of Energy? I think it's all well and good to bring things together to be more efficient, but they should be more effective at the same time, and should really address some concerns that we have. This amendment, 19-page amendment coming at the 11th hour. I think it bears looking at. It bears some consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further questions? Senator Gaida? I think your microphone's off. The question Senator Reagan has, was any of this heard in the House?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
Yes, so this proposal was heard in the House. The House adopted all aspects of the amendment that we brought forward for House Bill 2, as well as House Bill 1. So nothing in this proposal has been rejected by the House Finance Committee. There is, again, new material, the reference changes that I spoke to earlier, the Site Evaluation Study Committee. Those were not heard during the House phase, but I will say that in conversations with House leadership on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, they've been part and parcel to this process to make sure that any concerns that we heard from stakeholders did have their support in bringing this amendment forward.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Al Begay. Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Morse.
Yeah, the only clarification is section or number 11 on our sheet. Can someone address that before they get off?
Yeah, good point.
Jared, would you be able to speak to number 11?
Sorry, Matt, I can't see it. I don't have it right in front of me. Hold on one second. I believe this just references the fact that we're creating the position of offshore wind director within the Department of Energy. And right now, I believe BEA, I believe they have a contract with the Business Finance Authority to do those functions. Matt, am I correct in that? Sorry,
That's correct. And this is just where the staff support for the commission's ongoing work is coming from. And again, moving it from BEA to the Department of Energy, consistent with moving the offshore wind office from BEA to the Department of Energy.
right.
Senator Morse, follow up?
Yeah, can I just ask LBA, are we picking that up somewhere else in one of these in those other two departments?
This recap has been combined with the comment sections from the other agencies, so this would be the only place it will appear.
Follow up?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would disagree that this hasn't been well thought out. I think what's happened here is the, as it goes through the process, which everything that goes through the legislature, it's a complex amendment that's getting attached here in order to set up a whole new department. So I don't think there's anything unusual here, but I do think unless the governor's office tells me anything different, I would move items 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in order to complete what they're presenting.
Okay, so Senator Morse is moving items 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's seconded by Senator Reagan. Discussion on that motion.
Mr.
Senator
Chairman,
Morse.
I believe what's being presented here financially is to complete everything that's been presented. Senator Bradley called me earlier today about this council move. I think the reason LBA is going to tell me there's zeros in those two lines is because it's accounted for already. We're just putting it in the right place.
Did you want confirmation on that?
Yep.
I would ask, I think I'm rejoining here. I would ask if Matt can comment on that, because Senator Bradley's concern, I believe, was the location of the general counsel position, which used to be under the Public Utilities Commission. And maybe he can tell us where the position is and if the recent changes satisfy Senator Bradley's concern.
Thank you, Mike. I have not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have not spoken to Senator Bradley regarding this specific amendment. The general counsel position right now would exist in the support division, which is where they would be able to support both the PUC and the Department of Energy. This position, along with the executive director of the PUC, are being phased out as part of this reorganization, replaced by the new Commissioner of Energy and the new structure at the PUC. These individuals serve terms that are not governor and council confirmed. They're set by the PUC as it currently exists. So the intent for a smooth transition is to have them serve the remainder of those terms, facilitate that, But we feel the support division is the best place for them. So they have, a broad scope over all of these different areas of the new department. Putting them at the PUC, the general counsel position, would limit the scope of what this individual would be able to do from a transitionary period. But again, I have not had a conversation with Senator Bradley as to his specific hopes with this amendment.
Chairman?
Senator
All
Morse.
I was looking for, because I trust Senator Bradley on these issues, I agree with his request to move it. I just want to make sure the accounting exists so that we can cover this position.
Senator Morris, we have zeros in that row because it would transfer from one accounting unit to another.
And it is in another accounting unit. That's what I want to make sure.
Right. I think Matt just told us it was in this support accounting unit and not the PUC accounting unit.
Okay.
Further discussion? Motion before us is the adoption of items 2 and 4 through 10. Seeing no further discussion, we'll call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
No.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. And the motion carries 6-1.
Chairman,
Senator Morse.
I'm going to move item 14. I'm only skipping 11 until I can get a clarification, but I'm going to move item 14.
Senator Morse moves amendment 2021-1520S, that's number 14. Is there a second? Second by Senator Reagan. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
No.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries 6-1. Any further action? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'd like to move amendment 1419S.
Senator Rosenwald moves item number 13. That's amendment 1419S.
Second.
Seconded by Senator D'Alessandro and Senator Rosenwald. You're
Thank you.
recognized.
So this is consistent with the action the Senate took on House Bill 351 last week. And it just removes some strike through, removes a removal of some language that the House did in House Bill 2. It would change a bipartisan and signed agreement that was enacted 2 years ago. And we were asked, Senator Gaida and I were asked to bring this in by the chair of Energy and the ranking member to be consistent with ongoing policy and our actions last week on 351. I don't know if Senator Gaida can add to that.
Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is as Senator Rosenwald has said, this will clarify and allow PUC to move ahead. Unless this is enacted, there'll be additional delay on some already pending cases. And so what this does is it enables them to move ahead by giving definition.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Motion before us is item number the adoption of item number 13. That's amendment 1419S. Seeing no further discussion, we'll call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes, I think.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and the motion carries.
Chairman?
Senator Morse.
Yeah, I just talked to LBA. Section 11 is cleanup that I believe we have to do.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Section 11, I move on to pass.
Senator Morse moves item number 11 ought to pass, and that was seconded by Senator Reagan. Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy,
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And we've adopted item number 11.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator D'Alessandro.
thank you. I'll withdraw my amendment, 1466S.
Okay, thank you. We don't have to take any action on it because it's not in. so.
Right.
Anything else to do with the Department of Energy? Seeing none. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation in helping us to understand this. Next, we will we'll take up the Department of Health and Human Services. Okay. So actually, before we go on to that, we'll wait for Senator Hennessy. The committee will be in recess for 5 minutes.
You're gonna knock me out over here. The heat wave. No, I'm fine with opening the window.
don't think we have. Okay, the committee will come back to order. We are going to take one final vote on the Department of Energy to adopt the House numbers and the amendments that we have approved. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Senator Reagan, seconded by Senator Hennessy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call roll. Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and the motion has been adopted. Now we will go on to the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Commissioner. And do we have someone from the department out there? There we go. Good afternoon, Karen.
Good afternoon.
Okay, the items before us, one of the questions I had, I imagine that when you went into this process, you had a set of priorities on items, and my question is, if the House, while they may not have adopted all your priorities, did they adopt your top priorities?
No, they did not.
Could you identify which one they did not, or which ones?
They didn't adopt any of them. They did adopt one, which I did not include in what I presented to the Senate, which was an adjustment to the, one of the staff classes at New Hampshire Hospital. There was an increase voted on by Governor and Council and approved by Governor and Council, and they did do that increase, which was a request. And then there were some accounting adjustments, but none of the prioritized needs, if you will.
Okay, and that does not appear to show up on the recap sheets that we have, is that correct?
No, that would not, I don't believe it would show on your recap sheet, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the House has adopted their position on the Office of Commissioner. You have the recap sheet before you. Is there anything that you wish to address on that sheet? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I would like to address items 4 and 5.
Senator Rosenwald, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm not a big fan of back of the budget cuts because I think they're not transparent. I think we need to do the hard work of appropriating the money for the programs that we think are important. And I think on the next one, we've heard testimony from the department that these personnel reductions, the department will not be able to fulfill its mission if this stays in there. So I think we ought to discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Hennessy.
So I'm in agreement with removing the back of the budget cut for the money. So I would move to strike section 12 of HB1 relative to DHHS budget reductions. I'm in agreement with removing the back of the budget cut of $50 million. So I would move to strike section 12 of HB1 relative to the DHHS budget reductions.
Okay. Senator Hennessy moves to adopt number 4 which removes 50 million overall back of budget reduction. That's seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Senator
to,
D'Alessandro?
thank you. I'd like to support that. We've talked about this on numerous occasions. That's a significant back of the budget cut, 50 million. And I can't understand how we lapse 75 million and have a $50 million cut. That means we mustn't be spending any money on health and human services. It doesn't make any sense to me. We appropriate money to be spent in certain areas. That's how it should be done. The limitation of the number of personnel is problematic. How can you do the job with limitations on the number of personnel that are required to do these jobs? And we always complain that we never have enough people to do these jobs. I think there are two dynamic factors in play here. And this back of the budget cut doesn't address either one of them.
Okay, thank you. So the only item we're addressing right now, the motion is on number 4. The further discussion. Senator Morse.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've said this, I agree. I don't agree with it's House Bill 1 back of the budget cut, and I just want to make that clear. I don't agree with the way the House did it. With the lapses that have been presented the last couple of years and where we are this year, I certainly think we have our homework to do in this next week. Because this was all done in general funds. You could have done a $25 million cut to HHS just based on lapses and got a $50 million cut in spending. So I think there's a lot of work to do here. I'll support the motion on getting rid of the back of the budget cut, but I think the Senate's got to, start sharpening its pencil on issues that may not have to be in the budget.
Further discussion. Seeing none, you ready for the vote? Motion before us is to adopt item 4, which removes 50 million overall from the back of the budget, an overall back of the budget reduction. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Are there any further items? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'd like to move item number 5, which is specific to the number of positions eliminated by the House.
Okay, Senator Rosenwald moves the adoption of item number 5, which removes 22.6 million personnel-specific back of budget reduction. Is there a
Second.
Second by Senator D'Alessandro. Discussion. Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I don't believe that department will be able to function at the level we require. I'm sure there are some positions, but the House added hundreds more. And I think it will put these programs at risk. Children will be at risk, and DCYF, I think we'll have problems throughout the department's programs. This seemed like a major traumatic blow where a scalpel is required.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Morse.
Mr. Chairman, when I built the budget in 2011, this is exactly where I went to vacancies. And I unless someone on item 4 and 5 comes up with a plan this week to come up with these kind of reductions, I think there's a better way to do it, but the plan needs to be written. And while I supported number 4, I'm not going to support 5 until someone comes forward with a better way to reduce, because I'm not sure you can on that one.
Thank you. Further discussion? I think we heard earlier that there was some 700 vacant positions within Health and Human Services. I don't know how many positions you're talking about with 22.6 million. I know that that based upon information that LBA gave us of vacant positions, if you took all of the vacant positions, some of them which, well, I'm not talking just Health and Human Services, but just overall, let me just say that it's difficult to tell which of the positions are going to be the ones that are needed. And I think that's probably the intent of this is not the legislature picking out the ones you're going to cut, because you may end up reducing personnel that are priorities of the department. But it just seems like there's a lot of vacant positions that have been out there for a long time. But I mean, I would be willing to let the department decide which personnel to reduce if we decided to adopt or to turn down this item. Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is the adoption of item 5, which would remove 22.6 million in personnel specific back of the budget reductions. I'm ready to call roll. Senator Morse,
No.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida.
No.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes no. And the motion fails 2-5. Are there any other sections that the committee wishes to address? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'd like to move for discussion House Bill 2 Amendment 1339S, just for discussion purposes. If I could.
Senator Rosenwald moves Amendment 1339S.
I'll second that.
Item what? Item 8. That's seconded by Senator D'Alessandro. And
Thank
Chair
you.
recognizes Senator
So-
Rosenwald.
Thank you. We just took out the back of the budget cut, but I wanted to bring this up for discussion in case during committee of conference, we end up with some level of back of the budget cut. This amendment would require the department to simply report quarterly to fiscal where they have made the cuts. So in the current budget, we had a $25 million back of the budget cut over 2 years, and we really never found out where those cuts were made. And I think it would be helpful and transparent if we end up with a back of the budget cut in the end, to be able to find out how it's accomplished as the biennium moves forward. So I don't know if that's something we want to adopt or something that we could put a pin in until committee of conference if we needed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Morse.
Mr. Chairman, I would support Senator Rosenwald's theory that if we go into a committee of conference and we have to adopt the back of the budget cut, that this goes in with the back of the budget cut. I don't think we need to do it right now, but I'm going to tell you, if we don't come up with a plan for we're going to be in committee of conference for a long time, because we already have bills on the table. So I understand we're adding back money. That part of it, I get. They're on the table. We're going to address them at some point. But in order to keep up with the house's budget, which I don't believe a $50 million cut. I mean, if we built our lapses too big, that's one thing. All right. I don't understand why we would do that. But based on the lapses that we've seen in the last couple of years and where we're going this year, I don't think a $50 million cut is outrageous when, if the House had done it the way I think it should be done, it could have been a 25 million in general fund, a 25 million in federal fund, or greater, if that's what the Senate chooses to do. You know, to me, it seems like with a little work, we could make this cut in the Senate in the line items. And that's what I would propose to do, so we don't have to go to committee of conference over this issue. You know, we're gonna go to committee of conference, but the point is, if we're fighting over a back of the budget cut, that's wrong. So- No. Good.
Further discussion.
It would be good for us to know where cuts take place. I think that's important because we're always talking about people, jobs we can't fill, specific jobs we can't fill. What about funded but unfilled positions that we don't need? Is there ever an attempt to work on that so that we could have emphasis on the jobs that we need but can't fill? And I think when you're talking about the elimination of jobs, it is important for us to know what's been eliminated because we appropriate for them.
Oh, Senator Del Sando, you're stepping into the camp of not supporting number 5 on that one. The reality of the whole thing is, I think we've always given this department an immense amount of flexibility to to leave open unfunded positions to move money around. And I have no problem doing that at all. But the reality of whether or not they're going to fill all these positions, I just can't see how it's going to happen. But
well, I think
in any case, on this reporting part, if we could
We should
vote on
hold it.
this when we do the committee of conference,
Yeah.
I would support this if we have to go to a back of the budget cut.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro.
well, I think again, it makes sense, but it seems to me, we give the Department of Health and Human Services enormous transfer responsibility. And we allow them transfer responsibility. They come to fiscal and they do the transfers all the time. It would appear to me that a department with that many positions, if you're going to eliminate positions, we ought to know who's been eliminated. If we're going to add positions, add positions. We're told constantly that there are areas where we can't fill positions. Those positions that we can't fill create a problem for us in terms of doing our job. So we ought to know that. We ought to know that. It's a big department. Maybe it's too big to be one department. We ought to look at that someday. But indeed, knowing what's going on is I think is an important situation, and it does refer directly to 5, but it also refers directly to 4. Both of those items fall into play because it's people. I mean, it doesn't personnel make up about 80% of the budget across our state? Now, I don't know, Health and Human Services, personnel costs. How much, Karen, how much of the budget does that represent?
I don't know the exact percentage, but I would guess it's around 25%, but I'd need to confirm that.
All right, so 25%. And what's the size of the budget?
Of the total budget,
Yeah,
like federal and general funds,
Yeah.
2.6 billion a year, around that.
So
Which makes me think-
25% of 2.6 billion is a pretty decent number, isn't it?
Yeah, now I'm nervous that that percentage might be too high, so please don't commit me to 25%. Please don't. I'm not certain that it is. I know where,
I'll give you 20%. It still is a huge number. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further discussion? I would agree with some of the comments that have been made, that I think this would be a good thing. I have absolutely no problem keeping track of the positions that are reduced. Do question if we need to put a requirement on the department that they do that quarterly.
Do you think that's too much or too little?
I would think that if they're trying to reach a goal on savings, that they probably would do that early in the year. So I think just stretching out that requirement.
To 6 months? I mean, I'm happy to consider
Yeah.
any of it.
But
I
I-
just believe we should know where these cuts get made if we end up in that position. So I'm happy to not move it or withdraw it and just put a pin in it in case we need it later.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's, you know,
Okay.
It's a great base for when we go into discussions and should that action go forward, and it enables us to track that as well. Any further discussion in the committee? Seeing that we don't have to take any, you withdrawing your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else that committee, Senator Morse?
Item number 6, I think, is an errata from the department, so I'll move it. I'll move item 6.
Senator Morse moves item number 6. And that is seconded by Senator Reagan. Just department-wide budget adjustments.
Could you just go over it a bit for us? Because I noticed that we dropped 2 million in federal funds in the second year.
I'll recognize the LBA.
Yes, on page 3, you can see the detail behind those accounting changes. And in a lot of cases, they're swapping general funds for either other funds or federal funds. And in some cases, they're picking up federal grants, things like that. So there should be really nothing substantive on this list. They're all accounting changes.
Okay.
The only one that I guess I would call attention to, just so people know what's going on, is 26A, family planning. You can see there's 1.6 million being reduced in federal funds each year.
Yeah.
Those were funds that were accidentally budgeted by the department and that they don't expect to receive, or the federal funds may be provided, but they won't be coming through the department, so there's no need to budget them. So that really is an errata request. There are no others that seem noteworthy to me, but if any of the committee members have any questions, I can try to answer them, or Karen Rounds may be able to answer them.
But the 1.6 was a stick out.
I'm sorry?
The 1.6 was a stick out.
Yes, yes, but it was really
Right,
incorrectly budgeted to begin with.
okay.
Thank you. Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. Can the department explain number 24A, employment supports increase of 800 in general funds?
yes, so we did not budget enough TANF MOE in fiscal year 22 only. So that is the request for $800,000 in general funds to ensure that we have the entire TANF MOE budgeted.
Follow up?
Follow up.
Is that an increase in maintenance of effort over prior years?
Nope, it was just, we weren't able to get the entire amount into the agency budget based on the guidance we were trying to meet at the time.
And further follow-up, did we receive increased TANF funds, or are we anticipating to receive an increased amount?
I would ask Chris Santinello to be recognized to answer that for certain, but I believe there is a small amount, but I could be thinking of SNAP funds and not TANF. So Chris Santinello would be able to answer that question. I think she should be in the audience.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
Well,
So we are not getting additional TANF for our actual regular TANF allotment. We did get one amount of TANF, of pandemic TANF dollars that cannot take the place of our regular TANF allotment.
Chris, can you tell me the 800,000, does that get us to the same maintenance of effort of general funds as we had in 21?
So Karen, I'm going to also ask Karen to jump in. Yes, that gets us, I believe, to the same maintenance of effort. And TANF is one of those programs that if you spend $1 of federal funds or the entire budget, you have to have a certain MOE for the state.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
further discussion.
I just want to follow up
Yes,
on the,
follow up.
thank you, on the 26A. Can you just give us a little bit more information about why you're not accepting those funds?
Sure. So about 2 years ago, during the last budget session, there was a change to the federal Title X rules that made some agencies that were receiving Title X funds ineligible to receive those Title X funds. And at that time, during that budget session, let me stop there for a second. So in addition to the Title X funds that the department receives and distributes out to agencies, there are Title X funds that the federal government distributes directly. So during the budget session 2 years ago, the budget supplanted the federal funds that went from the state to those agencies with general funds, and also supplanted the federal funds that went directly from the federal government to those agencies. So that budgeted general funds for something that we would not have had those federal funds budgeted for. So in the agency phase of the budget, we did submit the budget requesting those general funds to continue to supplant those federal funds. During the governor's phase, we had a discussion around the fact that the Title X rules are anticipated to change again under the new federal administration. So because of that, the governor's office said, you know, those federal funds should flow again, so there's no need for those general funds to supplant them. So an adjustment was made in the governor's phase to take out those general funds. In discussions with the governor's budget director, I informed him that he could then put federal funds there instead, and that was a mistake on my part. I forgot that those federal funds flowed directly from the federal government and not through DHHS. So in the House phase, I made the request. There was a lot going on around this issue. So this did get dropped off in the House phase, I don't think intentionally. And so I'm asking for it to be corrected in this phase. We will not receive those federal funds. When that Title X rule changes, those federal funds will flow directly from the federal government.
To New Hampshire family planning providers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion.
That is what's anticipated, I should say.
Seeing no further discussion. We have a motion on the floor. Item 6. Seeing no further discussion, we'll call roll on item number 6. Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Item number 6 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Is there anything further? Senator Gaida.
Mr. Chairman, I would move item number 9, Amendment 2021-1501S.
Senator Gaida moves item number 9, that's Amendment 1501S. Seconded by Senator Reagan. Discussion? Senator Rosenwald.
I have a question for the department. I think you all know that I love privacy and I've worked hard for it. But I want to make sure that we wouldn't be jeopardizing any federal funds or being afoul of CMS regulations if we halted total progress on the closed loop referral system. And the reason I ask is when I spoke with Dr. Ballard a few weeks ago, I think he said that it was a requirement, a federal requirement to have a closed loop referral system.
So you are correct. It is a requirement of the IMD waiver, which is the waiver we are currently working on to implement, which is part of the resolution to the mental health crisis in the state. So it would be a requirement of that waiver.
Follow up.
Follow up.
So if we were violating the requirement of the IMD waiver, what kind of federal funds would we be risking? How much?
So I don't know that I could get you an exact number on that. What we would be risking is an avenue for additional mental health beds in the state to be able to claim to Medicaid. So right now, New Hampshire Hospital claims DISH. With a change to an IMD, they would then receive Medicaid. And so that would be where the impact would be.
On mental health beds. Thank you.
Yes.
Further discussion. Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment merely states that any further progress with the closed loop system requires statutory approval of the legislature. This was enacted without the legislature's approval in a budget maneuver that frankly I found offensive. And I think the scrutiny of the legislature on any such system, which ties together all contacts of an individual for social or health services into a single centralized database, certainly merits the scrutiny of the legislature in terms of protecting the privacy of the individuals. It's not intended to stop it from going forward. It's merely intended to make sure that appropriate scrutiny is provided to protect the privacy of individuals whose lives are affected.
Senator Hennessy.
Oh, wait.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, what we'll be voting on is Amendment 1501S. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
No.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald,
No.
and the chair votes yes. The motion carries 5-2. Anything else to be brought up on the Office of the Commissioner? Senator Morse.
Mr. Chairman, normally I would have let Erin go first, but I have a feeling she was going to make a motion. I would just ask in the next 3 days that we keep all of these open. I know that senators are doing a lot of work on health and human services. So I don't want to accept the House's position and ride over it by Friday, because I think between today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, we should be able to get some of our answers with the department and make this work. So
We will put a, we'll put a hold on the separate departments and address divisions and address them when we get the information that we're happy with. Senator Hennessy, did you have?
No, I just wanted to discuss to Senator Gaida's point on our last motion. This doesn't prevent the prevent us from moving forward with this system, perhaps with a less expensive alternative option that provides more privacy and security for our citizens.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the office of the commissioner? Seeing none. We'll go on to next division is Division of Economic and Housing Stability. Anything on the list that anyone wishes? Senator Hennessy,
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion.
recognized for a motion.
I move amendment 2021-1406S requires DHHS to implement supplemental nutrition assistance program, otherwise known as SNAP incentives, enabling beneficiaries to receive a dollar-for-dollar match for fresh fruits and vegetables.
Senator Hennessy moves amendment 1406S. That's item number 5.
And I'd
Is
like
there
to
a
speak to
second?
my motion.
Second.
Second by Senator Reagan. Senator Hennessy, you're recognized.
Thank you. I believe, and I may have the bill number wrong, this was a bill that the Senate has passed and moved on to the House, SB 98. And in speaking with the chair of Finance Division 3, they seemed in favor of this bill, but couldn't support it at the time because of the fiscal impact, and they had already passed the budget on to us. So they had asked me to include this in the budget.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, ready for the vote? Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy,
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We have adopted item number 5. Senator Rosenwald,
Thank you. I'd like to move items number 1, 3, and 4.
Senator Rosenwald is moving items number 1, 3, and 4. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Senator D'Alessandro. Senator Rosenwald, you're
Thank you.
recognized.
These are department requests, and the first one is very important for the foster parent program, especially for the number of grandparents that we see in New Hampshire who are being asked to take on the responsibility of raising their grandchildren. I think that's been mostly due to the opioid problem and mental health crises. The other 2 have to do with homeless and housing. Number 3 was basically passed in Senate Bill 140, which we laid on the table. And I am not aware that these programs can be funded with federal funds. And if they can, I'd be happy to use federal funds, but I'm not aware of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Morse,
Chairman, can we take those up one at a time?
Yeah.
without
Yes,
without
I'm happy
objection.
to
We'll
amend
take
my
item number
motion
1.
and start with move item number 1.
Senator Rosenwald moves item number 1,
Second.
seconded by Senator D'Alessandro. Discussion on item number 1. Seeing none, actually, I have a question for the department, and it pertains to item number 1, but also to 2, 3, and 4. And it's just the wording on here about adding funding for something. Does this indicate that the House has already put some money for these programs in it and we're adding to it? Or are we adding in a whole new program? that they have not passed?
So with the first one, it's a program that they haven't passed. With the second one, it's a program that's partially funded. With the third one, it's a program that's partially funded. And the fourth one, I would say the same thing, partially funded.
Karen,
Yes, Chris?
we do have some funding for the facilitating organization, but this is additional funding to kind of help with the infrastructure. We have a very small amount.
Oh, correct. And that's federal funds. That's what I was
Yes.
thinking. This is,
Yeah, okay.
there are no general funds. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thanks for that, Chris.
Okay, so your references, Karen, were to general funds?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. I have a question for the department. Can you tell me, I'm looking at the compare budget, and it looks like the House and the governor funded it at about maybe a third less than in the prior biennium. Was this funded differently previously to that? And what is the need for doubling the prior biennium's funds?
So these funds were, and there were several requests in public health that are similar to this request. So these funds were appropriated last budget cycle to DCYF, and they were called parental assistance funds. And so they were all within the DCYF budget as 100% general funds. However, the types of services really fell into economic and housing stability and public health. So they were not budgeted in DCYF this biennium for 22-23, and the requests were made in DHEHS and public health.
Thank you. Follow up?
Follow up?
Is that similar to number 2 and number 3? Were those also someplace else previously?
2, no, 2 should have shown in the budget. That one wouldn't have come from somewhere else. 3, I don't think would have either. That would have been in 7927.
And can you tell me where number 1 came from? What page that it's on?
It would have been in 20, hold on. In 2958, the accounting unit 2958. Let me see if I can get you. For some reason, my search function on PDF has not been working today, but it is in 2958. Oh, it's rated, it's page 1082. And I can find out the class line that those would have been in previously for you. I think it might have been in 102.
Senator Hennessy's looking at Senator Gaida.
With a question to the department?
You are recognized.
Thank you. So on item 1, it says 22 and 23, 325,000 each. Is that the total appropriation you're looking for? Or is that in addition to the federal funds that are listed in the compare report?
That would be in addition to the federal funds. These are that's just a general fund request.
And how does that compare? Follow up?
Follow up.
How does that compare with the funding amounts for this current biennium?
So this is so to go back to 2958, and I apologize, it's actually in class line 645. So if you look on page 1082, class line 645, the 21 adjusted authorized you see there is 1.975 million. So it was about a $2 million request, less than 300,000, about $1.6 million request. And so this is part of that 1.6, and the rest of that is within the public health requests.
Further questions? Senator Gaida?
Yeah, I didn't catch everything that Karen said. I'm sorry. So in the aggregate, if we were to add this 325 each year, how would that compare to the appropriation that was made in the current biennium?
It would be the exact amount of the appropriation made in the current biennium if you added it to the public health requests.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion before us is the adoption of item number 1. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'd move item number 3.
Senator Rosenwald moves item number 3.
Which I realize is a huge amount of money.
It is a huge amount of money.
It is. And if, I mean, we have a homeless problem in this state and we need to solve it, I think, with a lot of tools. Some of it is affordable housing, but some of it is homeless services. And we have been funding shelters at a rate of $8 a day per person. The cost is $46. So this would move us closer, I believe, to funding about half of the cost of a day in a shelter.
Thank you. Was there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Senator D'Alessandro. Further discussion? I'm sorry, Senator Hennessy.
Can you tell me which line on page 1100 this would go into?
Are we talking about number?
Oh, sorry. I'm
3?
on the wrong one. I'm on the wrong
Yep.
one. This is a big number then.
Further discussion? Motion before us. I'm sorry,
Mr. Chair, I'd rather
Yes.
have some more time to work on this if
Okay.
I'm not ready to vote on it, if that's okay.
Okay,
I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
okay, the motion has
And
been
just-
withdrawn.
Yeah,
I'll withdraw the second.
so I would move item number 4.
Senator Rosenwald moves
Another
item number
request
4.
of the department.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, a question on item 3 to the department.
Okay, recognize Senator Gaida for a question on number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can the department assemble data on the number of shelters and how many people each has served? And so we can get kind of an aggregation of the impact of the current funding level. Just to get some data upon which to base a decision. I mean, emotionally, it's great, but that's a lot of money. And I'd like to try to find some data as to how effective these funds are being spent.
Mr. Chair, to
Yes.
add to that request, also geographic locations of the monetary spread.
Okay, get all that, Karen?
Yes, I believe Chris is writing it down. We will get you that information.
Are we keeping that data, Chris, on homelessness?
So we actually have by shelter that we fund their bed capacity and the location and where they are and how much our contract amount is for them. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Well, what about, if I might, Mr. Chair, for the point on that, what about the other shelters, Chris, that are funded by private entities, private not-for-profits? Do you work with them also? Because there's got to be some continuity or continuity there. You got to be working with each other for placement.
Right. I mean, we work with other organizations, but I don't, I can see exactly what I have for bed capacity, but what I have is for those through the Bureau of Housing Supports. We do know what is funded through our Division of Behavioral Health and other, but if you're looking at homeless services in the definition that we have here, I can get you that information.
Yeah, and the geography?
Yep. Yes,
Thank you.
you're
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. Chris, does that include occupancy rates for those beds? Can you, how often they're filled or if there's a wait list?
Yeah, I mean, but what it'll be is it'll be a point in time. Because we don't collect the occupancy every single day. You know, we collect occupancy, you know, monthly. So we don't have that right now for every day. We're working on increasing some of our data, but I do know that most shelters have been full for quite some time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Follow up.
Senator Gaida.
Thank you. And Chris, did I understand that you have no data on, if you will, non-state shelters, sort of following on Senator D'Alessandro's question? That there are shelters that that the state is not involved in that would not receive state funding. Is that correct?
So there are some shelters that do not receive state funding. And so I will have to look and get that information from my team. I know we collect some of it, but I'm not sure the extent of it off the top of my head.
That would be
But I will,
helpful. That would be helpful. And thank you.
yeah, I'll see what I can get.
Thank you.
We work in partnership with many of them, so.
Okay. We're done with number 3. Going to hold on that. Item number 4,
Would you like to hold that one too?
going to hold that one too. Okay.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Any other action on the Division of Economic and Housing Stability? Seeing none. We'll go on to the Division of Long-Term Supports and Services.
I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
Senator D'Alessandro moves items 1 and 2. Is there a second? Second by Senator Rosenwald. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've worked on these for a number of years. We funded them in the last budget for the first time in a number of years. The congregate housing is in specific areas where we have public housing, and the foster grandparent program is a unique program. It's $100,000 a year, and it's always been an effective program. And we have just, as I said, we funded it last time, but I've tried. I don't know how many budgets I've tried to get this in over the years. Finally got it in last year, but it has been suspended in prior years. But the congregate program aids services to people living in congregate housing, and it's always proved effective, as has the foster grandparents.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I'd like to speak particularly to item number 1. If we look at our long-term care needs across the state, which are only going to grow, I think we should do everything we can to keep people out of the Medicaid program. And to the extent that we can support older Granite Staters in their communities, and many of whom are in these congregate housing, there are hundreds of people in these congregate housing situations, it will save us money in Medicaid, because the cost of a nursing home bed is $70-something thousand a year. And community care even on Medicaid, it's much less expensive. So I think this small ask for item number 1 reaps benefits in the Medicaid program that are great. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is to LBA, is there any way that you can correlate the expenditure of these funds for congregate housing to a reduction in Medicaid spending? If those services were provided through Medicaid?
I'm not aware of any way to do that. I'm not sure if the department has done any work on that. As Senator D'Alessandro said, these programs were suspended for many years, so I'm not sure there was any way to draw that connection.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. Can the department tell me if these programs actually started in 21 or were they held off on?
They were not.
Can you identify what year they were started?
They were not started in fiscal year 20 or 21. These funds have lapsed and will lapse.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't hear.
I can't either.
Okay, Karen, can you restate?
Sure. The programs were not started, and these funds have lapsed in fiscal year 20 and will lapse in fiscal year 21.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is the adoption of item number 1 and 3, excuse me, 1 and 2. We'll call roll. Senator Morse?
I'm just gonna, 1, 2, 3, and 4, I would hold until we get a clearer picture of where the budget is. They been through this before. There are definitely issues that if we had room, we'd try to fit them in, but I have no idea if we're that close yet. So at this point, no.
Okay, Senator Hennessy?
No.
Senator D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Senator Reagan? Is that no? Senator Gaida?
No.
Senator Rosenwald?
Yes.
And the chair is going to vote no. Keep in mind that we will have an opportunity to go back through these later too. So we're not taking the final votes on these.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's two things going on here. One, we could do that. And 2, just like item number 4, I'm certain item number 4 is something to do with lapses where you're going to put a footnote in and use lapses. That's why it's saying 0, 0. I think we have to look at this. Is that what you've done, Senator Hennessy?
It's still in progress. I'm not going to move it
So-
today.
I just believe that's what's being thought of in item 4. It could be, as it was just presented, items 1 and 2 could be the same thing, so.
Okay. Senator Gaida?
Parliamentary inquiry, would it be appropriate to reconsider and to put a hold on these things now?
That's why I said keep them open till we get through it, but I mean, I think all of these right here, you know, 3, I don't quite understand right now, but I've certainly been through 1 and 2 before, and
Yes.
and 4, in my opinion, and I've spoke with Senator Rosenwald about this and Senator Hennessy. I think this is about getting money to the people that are working, because that's what it's all about. I mean, they can't hire them, so how do we get something to them directly? So that's why item 4, I think we have to put our heads together a little bit to make that one happen. But there's a lot going on. I mean, and there's a lot of federal funds flying in here on a lot of things, so.
If it is a desire of the committee, we can put the division on hold.
Well, I'd rather see it on hold than voted down, because they're worthwhile programs. And they, as Senator Rosenwald pointed out, if you keep people in the housing rather than in long-term care facilities, you're saving the state money, you're saving Medicaid money. And they're getting services that will help them sustain. That makes sense to me, but putting them on hold makes sense. We do this every 2 years. I fight for these every 2 years. And it's kind of like my gambling bill, Chuck.
Yeah, well, I've been involved in these two every
Right.
2 years.
Every 2 years, every 2 years. Karen, every 2 years. And then you give me the La Maronas and lapse them, but that's the way it goes.
Items number 5 and 6, can we get an explanation of what they are?
Sure. Chair, and that recognizes LBA or the department. We'll try the department.
So item 5, Deb, are you able to cover item 5, or does, I don't know if John Williams is listening in today?
I can take 6.
Could you bring John Williams over to cover item 5?
Okay, Chris, while we're bringing John, in, what you want to address? Item 6? All right, never
Go ahead,
mind.
Deb.
John's in.
All right.
Hi, well, Senator Daniels, thank you very much. John Williams, Director of Legislative Affairs. And my apologies, I was multitasking and I'm just catching up with you folks right now. And as I'm looking at the first item here involving the Social Services Block Grant and the COLA adjustment, as you're well aware that standard language that we have contained in the trailer built to the budget, it's been there for several budget cycles as it relates.
John, excuse me, but you need to speak closer to your mic because I'm losing most of what you're saying.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that seemed to happen the last time. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Thank you. So going back, there's already a provision. It was in the governor's version as well as in the House regarding the Social Services Block Grant. And those particular services receive a cost of living adjustment based upon the Social Security adjustments for that. And so that's part of the budget process that we go through every single budget cycle, which is fine. However, there's also required of the department to go through and go to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and essentially do the same exercise that you've already sanctioned through the budget process relative to these cost of living adjustments. So you may recall back in HB 4 from 2019 on the budget adjustment factor, we had a similar situation where we asked the legislature, and particularly during the Senate phase of the budget, that we had a similar issue where there was basically a pro forma or duplicate effort to having to create rules when in fact things were fairly straightforward and not really necessary. So what we're asking you to do here is to adopt additional language that would allow a carve out or an exemption for this cost of living adjustment that we do through the budget process, not having to also go through the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. I think I would defer also to Senator Reagan. I know his background, and also to the committee members that I believe that I've heard that the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules is receptive to this amendment.
Further questions on item 5? Okay, is there someone who can address item 6?
So for item 6, this is language that would continue the suspension of RSA 151 E18. This was adopted in the laws of 2019, and essentially presumptive eligibility for LTSS for CFI requires general funds, as we cannot build waiver funds. And right now there are no funds to support this effort.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. My understanding of presumptive eligibility for choices for independence is that it is not reimbursable with federally matching funds. So if we didn't continue to suspend it, we would be, and had to fund it, it would be only general funds. I would totally support item 6 and would move it if that's appropriate.
Okay, let's see if there are any more questions regarding 5 and 6.
I just want the department to clarify Senator Rosenwald's understanding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
Follow, question?
Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, looking for some data. Of course, I see that it was suspended during 2021. Is there any way to quantify savings? We know they exist, but for using CFI versus nursing homes? And what this, you know, what, again, what impact this would have on that?
Senator Gaida, I'm sorry, I don't think I understand the question, sir.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Senator Hennessy might be able to.
I'll ask Senator Gaida's question for him. When this rule, when this language wasn't suspended in a previous budget, between this current biennium we're in and when that rule wasn't suspended, what was the savings to the state?
I would have to look into that and get back to you.
So
I can answer this.
Yeah.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. This provision has never been funded.
That's what I was going to say.
Right.
It's been on our books since, well, for a while. Not decades, but I was in the House. But we have never funded it. But the House HHS Policy Committee thought that since there was presumptive eligibility for nursing homes, which are more expensive, there should be presumptive eligibility for CFI, which is less expensive and really what people want. But we have not funded it. We haven't repealed it because people still like the policy. But
Right,
we
you
have never
suspend.
funded it. We've suspended it all along, like we have with
Many
graduate
others.
medical education and some other things. We suspend them, but we haven't ever funded it.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just
Senator
A
Gaida.
question for the department. Again, I'm not terribly familiar and I apologize, but is the reason for the suspension, and maybe some of my fellow colleagues could share, the reason for the suspension is that this is 100% general fund and no federal match?
Yes.
Correct.
All right. We need-
FFP may not be claimed for waiver services that are furnished prior to the development of a service plan or for waiver services that are not included in an individual service plan. And CMS doesn't allow you to retro date. So the bottom line is it would be all general funds.
Right.
Follow up?
Follow up.
Is there a way to hypothetically develop a model that would show that if we funded it with general funds, we might save more money than we would spend overall?
So I think you're asking if we didn't give somebody predetermined eligibility under CFI, is there a potential they would end up in a nursing home because we didn't qualify them for CFI fast enough? And then that would cost more?
That's it.
Deb, do you know if that's a case that happens?
I would suggest to you that there are a few other states that have employed presumptive eligibility, and they've picked up the cost general funds or through another waiver authority through an 1115, for example. And they are running numbers against that and taking a look at that overall. But we have not done an analysis to determine if any quote unquote time period is a magic formula that would indicate that we're saving money because they're not found eligible during a certain period of time.
Thank you.
Senator Morse.
Yeah, but don't we have a cap on nursing home beds? So, I mean, that number's not going up. I'm not sure what people are doing, but the number's not going up. I think I checked this early on in the budget phase, and whether it's 4,100 or 4,200, I don't know what it is now, but I just know it was kept low. And so it's not like it can go up if these people, don't have any services at all, because we don't have it. We don't have beds available. So you're actually solving a problem, quite honestly, in society, I think. So I don't know if it's about saving money, I guess is my whole point.
Don't we have unoccupied beds in many of our long-term care facilities, particularly the nursing homes? We have many unoccupied. Is that
Don't
true?
give us any ideas.
I'm not giving you any ideas. I'm just stating a fact, Senator. Facts. I want facts, data. I'm giving you data.
Any further questions? Are there any motions on anything? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I think I had made a motion on number 6. And I view this suspending it as a cost savings for the state.
Okay, is there a second to
I'll
Senator
second
Rosen?
it. I'll second
Seconded
it.
by Senator D'Alessandro. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call roll. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan. Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move section 7, and section 7 just deletes section 22, which repeals the congregate services and the senior volunteer grant programs. I don't think we should repeal them. We should keep them going, which repeals the statute that repeals them.
Senator, since we have decided not to take a vote on those, to place those on hold, would that number 7 go along with that?
As long as they're still alive, yes. But I don't want them repealed. I mean, if we don't fund them, if the decision at the end of the game is not to fund them, I don't want them. I don't want either one of them repealed. And they're repealed in the current situation.
Yeah. I think we can hold those, Senator.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Make sure that they get taken up together.
Right.
Senator Reagan. Senator Reagan moves item number 5.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Discussion. Does this have any effect on the budget? Any further discussion? Mr. Senator Gaida.
So I need a better explanation of how implementing a cost of living adjustment does not impact the budget. And no disrespect on, it, I don't have that good an understanding.
Can you, Senator Reagan, can you put your microphone on, please?
It's a federal requirement. And we have to implement it, so we do double work to get the same result.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, motion on the floor is the adoption of item number 5. Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes,
The chair votes yes. We've adopted item number 5. Is there anything further to
I would
take
move-
action on? Senator Gaida?
I would move number 8, Amendment 2021-1513S.
second,
Senator Gaida moves item number 8, which is Amendment 1513S, that's seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Discussion? Senator Gaida?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it would serve a good purpose to bring some clarity to the reimbursement rates, the waiver programs and so forth. We amalgamate the information into a study committee that can present it for consideration in an organized fashion for potential future legislation.
Okay, any further discussion? Senator Rosenwald?
thank you. I totally support this, but I'd like to suggest that on the last line, we change the date for the report to change the year to 2022. I think it's not something we can accomplish, and I've spoken to Senator Gaida about this. We're in agreement. It's a longer proposal than just the months between July and November.
All right, so what was it? What was it regarding 2020?
So it would be November 15th, 2022. Just the last
The report date.
word of this amendment. Just change the year.
Senator Morse?
Yeah, while we're amending things, can we put Senator Geider and Senator Rosenwald's name on the willing to serve?
Yes, especially if it gets
Yeah.
more time.
In other words, they'd be conscripts.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you can put my name on it. I'm not going to speak for Senator Gaida.
Further discussion? Motion before us is the adoption of item number 8. Call roll. Senator Morse,
I guess.
Senator Hennessy,
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Reagan, Senator
Got
Gaida,
a caveat.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes,
Chair votes yes. Motion carries, and congratulate Senators Gaida and Rosenwald for volunteering. Okay.
Team building, team building.
Anything further?
just a question.
Yes.
Are we leaving number 3 on hold as well? I hope, because,
We have taken no action on it.
okay.
Right, right.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anything else to take action on today? Senator Morse?
Chairman, on number 3, is that the adult daycare?
Yes,
I'd like to understand what exactly happens with $1 million. Because you know what the rate is today, what's being proposed.
maybe the department could,
I don't need that today because we're not voting today, but that's, instead of just putting a number in there, what are we doing with the rates?
We come up with the numbers, so. Right, what does the 2 million a year equate to in terms of the rate?
Yeah, it's 1 million a year, I thought. But
Yeah, but
Right.
it's matched, but with federal,
it's matched.
yeah,
so it's 2 million.
so
Is that correct, Karen?
Yes, it does look like it's 2 million a year. So I'll Deb Sheets and I will connect with Senator Rosenwald and get that information for you.
Okay, anything else to be taken action on today? Seeing none, this will conclude our business for today. And we will convene again tomorrow at 1 o'clock to take up the next 3 sections of Health and Human Services. With that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Senator Rosenwell, second by Senator Gaida. Senator Morse? Senator Hennessy?
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Senator Reagan? Senator Gaida? Senator Gaida? Senator Rosenwald?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, and we will be adjourned. Thank you, folks, for joining us today.
Thank you.